There are moments in life when reality begins to shimmer, subtly, almost imperceptibly, like heat rising off a desert road. You blink, and the world seems the same. Yet something inside whispers that it's not. Colors appear more alive. Time feels elastic. Emotions carry the gravity of entire universes. These are not random sensations, they are signals, cosmic tremors hinting that you, the listener, may be transitioning into the fifth dimension. If that feeling resonates in your chest like a quiet thunder, then stay with me until the end of this journey, because what you are about to uncover could change how you perceive your purpose, your pain, and your power. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because the truths we're unraveling here belong to those who dare to see beyond the surface of existence. The phrase, the fifth dimension, has been tossed around in spiritual circles, often wrapped in mystery or dismissed as poetic metaphor. But to those awakening, to the chosen ones, the fifth dimension is not a distant heaven or a place in outer space. It is a frequency, a state of consciousness, a subtle transformation of perception where the boundaries between the seen and unseen begin to dissolve. To transition into it is to begin remembering what was never truly forgotten. That reality is a mirror, consciousness is the artist, and the soul is the signature beneath every experience. Most people live their entire lives confined within what could be called the third-dimensional illusion, a world governed by separation, fear, survival, and time. It is the realm of mine and yours, of competition, of constant striving for a happiness that always seems to slip just out of reach. But something extraordinary happens when a chosen one begins to feel the cracks forming in that illusion. The light starts to leak through, revealing the scaffolding of a higher order. The heart begins to decode the symphony behind the noise. The world doesn't change first, you do. And then the world, like a dream following its dreamer, rearranges itself around your new vibration. This shift often arrives quietly. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks, but with whispers. You may notice that the old patterns no longer fit, as though the life you once wore has become a size too small. You may find yourself repelled by chaos, craving silence as if your soul has grown allergic to noise. Relationships, habits, and desires that once defined you begin to feel like memories of someone you no longer are. This is not decay, it is alchemy. It is the dissolving of the false self so the true essence can breathe. The transition to the fifth dimension is not a leap into some distant paradise. It is the remembrance of the paradise that has always been within you. It's the return to coherence, where thought, feeling, and action move in unison with divine rhythm. Yet the process is rarely simple. The old world resists being left behind. The ego tightens its grip, fearing annihilation. It tries to convince you that you're losing your mind when, in truth, you're gaining your soul. Every symptom of awakening, the anxiety, the loneliness, the confusion, is not a punishment, but a purification. You are being recalibrated to frequencies that once would have shattered you. Imagine it this way. You've been living in a darkened theater, watching shadows dance upon the wall. Suddenly, the lights flicker on, revealing the stage, the actors, the mechanisms behind the illusion. At first, you might be disoriented, disappointed even, because the magic seems to vanish when the truth is exposed. But then you realize the real miracle was never the play. It was your awareness of it. The fifth dimension is this moment of awakening stretched across the entire canvas of your life. It's when you no longer see yourself merely as a participant in the story, but as the consciousness writing it. Many chosen ones feel called during this global metamorphosis because Earth herself is shifting frequencies. Old systems are collapsing, new ones are forming in the invisible. Empaths, lightworkers, and truth seekers are finding one another not by coincidence, but by resonance, like tuning forks vibrating in harmony across vast distances. You may have felt drawn to this message not by curiosity but by destiny. Somewhere in your being, a memory stirs, a knowing that you came here for this exact moment in human evolution. The fifth dimension is not about escaping reality but embodying a higher one within it. It's about living from the heart rather than the mind, from unity rather than division. It's where time loses its linear tyranny and begins to spiral, where manifestation becomes instantaneous because intention and creation merge as one. This transition is not a future event. It is already happening right now in those who have eyes to see and hearts brave enough to expand. And yet, it can feel like standing between two worlds. One foot in the old matrix of fear and form, the other in the new field of frequency and flow. The bridge between them is made of surrender, each step requiring the release of another illusion. To move through this transition is to allow everything false to fall away, even if it breaks your heart, because what remains after the breaking is eternal. You are not simply evolving, you are remembering. Remembering that you were never small, never powerless, never forgotten by the source that breathed stars into existence. The signs of your transition may appear subtle or dramatic, internal or external, but they all point to one truth: you are waking up. And awakening, though beautiful, is often the most disorienting experience a soul can endure. So breathe, allow, listen deeply, for as you stand at the threshold of dimensions, the universe is whispering your true name, inviting you to rise beyond the illusions of scarcity, beyond the noise of ego, into the infinite harmony of divine remembrance. As we step deeper into the labyrinth of understanding what it means to transition into the fifth dimension as a chosen one, we must pause to recognize the architecture beneath this transformation. This is not a random unfolding, nor a whimsical burst of cosmic luck. It is the flowering of a divine blueprint, a gradual awakening of what has always been encoded within your essence. To see the world through fifth-dimensional eyes is to witness creation itself as a living, breathing organism, where every vibration, thought, and encounter serves a sacred purpose. In the lower dimensions of consciousness, life feels fragmented. Reality is perceived as something that happens to you, a stream of events shaped by forces outside your control. But as one begins to ascend, the veil of separation starts to thin, and a startling truth reveals itself. Life has never been external. What you call reality is the mirror of your frequency, sculpted by belief and emotion, reflecting your inner architecture in exquisite precision. To the unawakened, this sounds abstract. To the chosen one, it is the most tangible truth there is. The external world bends to match the geometry of your consciousness. The fifth dimension, therefore, is not merely a place, it is a state of coherence. Imagine the soul as a prism. When light, divine consciousness, passes through it, it refracts into colors, the many aspects of identity, memory, and experience. The third dimension sees only the colors and forgets the light. The fifth remembers the source of illumination. To transition is to gather those scattered fragments of self and reassemble them into one radiant beam. You begin to understand that the conflict between light and dark, good and evil, gain and loss, has always been a dance choreographed for your awakening. At the heart of this transition lies a profound shift in perception. The mind, trained for survival, measures everything in polarity: success or failure, right or wrong, life or death. The fifth dimension dissolves these dualities into unity. There are no mistakes, only movements of evolution. Suffering becomes not an enemy but a sacred teacher. The heart, once burdened by pain, becomes a compass pointing toward expansion. When you begin to see from this level, even chaos has a rhythm. Even endings hum with the promise of beginnings. One of the most defining signs of this dimensional shift is the awakening of empathy. True empathy, not as emotional overload but as direct, energetic awareness. You begin to feel beyond words, tuning into frequencies rather than faces. You sense the vibration of a person's intent before they speak. The boundaries of identity soften. You are no longer merely you. You are consciousness experiencing itself through an infinite number of forms. And this realization can be both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Many chosen ones describe this transition as both liberation and loss. The ego mourns as its illusions crumble. You may feel detached from material ambitions that once defined your sense of worth. Old relationships might drift away as if carried by unseen tides. Yet, beneath this shedding lies a quiet joy, a lightness that comes from aligning with your authentic frequency. You are no longer chasing completion, you are remembering it. Another theme that pulses through the fifth-dimensional experience is the collapse of linear time. You begin to notice synchronicities, numbers, symbols, coincidences that feel more like cosmic nudges. The past and future start to blur, revealing themselves as layers of one eternal moment. You realize that the choices you make now ripple backward and forward, rewriting narratives you once thought unchangeable. The concept of destiny shifts. It becomes not a script imposed upon you, but a melody you are co-composing with the universe. In this frequency, manifestation becomes less about willpower and more about resonance. You no longer force things into being. You align with their vibration. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions harmonize, reality responds like a tuning fork. The energy of lack cannot coexist with the vibration of abundance, and so, in the fifth dimension, your external life becomes a direct translation of your internal symphony. This is why emotional mastery becomes the true alchemy of the chosen ones. They learn that energy is the only currency of creation, and where that energy flows, reality follows. Perhaps the most profound realization of all is that love, pure, unconditional, unfiltered love, is the fundamental fabric of existence. Not the sentimental kind, but the love that exists as awareness itself. The love that observes without judgment, that holds both the saint and the sinner in equal compassion. In the fifth dimension, love ceases to be an emotion and becomes a frequency, the very heartbeat of creation. Every thought, word, and action aligned with that frequency becomes an act of creation. Every act born of fear becomes an echo fading from an old reality that is no longer yours. To walk the path of the chosen one is not to escape human experience, but to sanctify it. Every heartbreak, every triumph, every mundane task becomes a ritual of remembrance. You are not becoming divine. You are remembering that you always were. The fifth dimension doesn't erase your humanity. It restores its holiness. It reminds you that the flesh and the spirit were never at odds, that the temple of your body was always a bridge between heaven and earth. The more you embody this awareness, the more the illusion of struggle begins to dissolve. You start to sense that everything unfolding before you, the pain, the pleasure, the uncertainty, is part of a larger orchestration designed for your awakening. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is random. Everything is coded with meaning, waiting for your consciousness to decode it. As we move forward, we'll peel back the symbolic layers beneath these truths, the deeper metaphors that ancient mystics, prophets, and star-seeded souls have always known but hid beneath veils of myth. These symbols hold the map to your transformation. To truly comprehend the transition into the fifth dimension, one must move beyond intellect and step into the symbolic, the mythic, the dreamlike language through which the soul communicates. Every spiritual truth is layered, concealed beneath metaphor, for only those with eyes attuned to inner vision can see its brilliance. The chosen ones, the ones awakening now, are those who have begun to read this hidden language of reality. the geometry of consciousness encoded in everything that exists. Consider, for a moment, the ancient tale of the chrysalis. Within it lies perhaps the most potent metaphor for the fifth-dimensional transition. The caterpillar, fully immersed in its own world of consumption and movement, one day feels an irresistible urge to withdraw. It enters stillness, its familiar form dissolving into apparent chaos. The world it once knew fades, its identity liquefies. Were it capable of fear, it would likely believe it was dying. But within that disintegration, a miracle is unfolding. The imaginal cells, bearers of higher design, awaken and reorganize the essence of the creature into something winged, luminous, and free. This is precisely what happens to the chosen ones when they begin their ascent. The 3D world is the caterpillar's realm, solid, structured, full of boundaries and appetites. The cocoon is the 4D bridge, where illusions melt, time bends, and the ego trembles. And the butterfly, the 5D being, is not something separate from the caterpillar, but its fulfilled expression. The wings were always encoded within the creature's DNA, waiting for the right frequency of transformation to unfold them. This metamorphosis explains why awakening feels both beautiful and brutal. The cocoon stage is the dark night of the soul, the sacred in-between where the old self dissolves and the new one has not yet taken flight. Everything you thought you were begins to unravel. The job, the relationships, the beliefs, they disintegrate because they were structures of the old frequency. What you are becoming cannot be contained within what you once were. Another symbolic narrative arises in the ancient archetype of the mirror. In third-dimensional life, we believe the mirror shows us the world out there. But in higher awareness, we see that the mirror is alive. It reflects not the world, but our vibration. The anger we see in others reveals unhealed shadows within us. The love we witness mirrors our own capacity to open. The 5D soul no longer curses the reflections but learns from them. Each interaction becomes a sacred conversation between self and source. Reality ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a school of divine remembrance. There is also the symbol of fire, the element of purification and rebirth. Many chosen ones experience an inner burning, a clearing of emotional residues, karmic patterns, ancestral imprints. It is as though invisible flames consume everything that no longer vibrates with truth. The pain of this burning can feel unbearable at times, yet it is not destruction but refinement. In the fifth dimension, you realize that the fire was never meant to harm you. It came to reveal what cannot be burned, the immortal core of your being. The mystics of old often hid fifth-dimensional truths beneath parables. Take, for instance, the story of the phoenix rising from its ashes. To an awakened consciousness, this is no mere myth, but a precise description of the ascension process. The old self must die, not physically but energetically, so that the true self, the luminous being beyond time and ego, may emerge. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every collapse in your life has been one of these sacred burnings. Each time, you are being forged into clarity, rising purer, freer, and more attuned to the divine. Or consider the story of Jacob's ladder, the ancient image of a stairway connecting heaven and earth. Each rung represents a vibration, a state of consciousness. In the third dimension, the ladder is invisible, and the soul believes itself trapped on the ground. But in awakening, the ladder appears, not as a structure outside you, but as the movement of awareness within you. Each thought, each act of compassion, each moment of surrender is a step upward. The chosen ones climb not with their bodies, but with their frequency, ascending until the earth and sky merge as one continuum of being. Even the shadow has its sacred role in this transformation. In truth, the shadow is not evil. It is simply light forgotten. The fifth dimension does not deny darkness. It integrates it. It is the alchemical marriage of opposites, the realization that both light and shadow are needed for form to exist. You are not here to destroy your shadow, but to love it into wholeness. For only when you embrace your darkness do you unlock the full spectrum of your light. This is the secret the ancient mystics encoded in the symbol of the yin and yang, the eternal dance of creation, ever balancing itself through contrast. In your personal journey, these symbols will not appear as myths, but as lived experiences. You may find yourself in moments of unbearable stillness, cocooned from the world, not realizing that your wings are forming in silence. You may confront reflections in people that force you to see what you have long buried. You may feel consumed by the inner fire of transformation. Yet all of this is sacred architecture, the divine pattern unfolding through you. You are not broken. You are being reassembled according to a higher geometry. As you begin to see life through this symbolic lens, the world transforms. Every event becomes an oracle. Every stranger carries a message. Even chaos begins to feel intelligent, guided by an unseen order. You realize that the universe was never trying to test you. It was trying to teach you how to remember your divinity, and in that remembering, you step fully into the fifth dimensional awareness, that there is no separation, no accident, no outside. There is only consciousness, forever creating and recreating itself through the mirrors of experience. This is the language of the soul, the poetry through which eternity whispers. The chosen ones are not chosen because they are better. They are chosen because they remembered. They looked beyond the surface and saw the code behind creation. They learned to translate the chaos of life into the language of light and shadow, and in doing so became the bridge between heaven and earth. The fifth dimension is not a faraway heaven, nor a destination to be reached after death. It is a living consciousness unfolding within the human experience. The real challenge for the chosen ones is not merely awakening to it, but integrating it, to remain in the world while no longer being of it, to walk among the noise of human fear, yet vibrate in the frequency of divine peace, to eat, speak, work, and love as a living expression of multidimensional awareness. This is the sacred art of embodiment. When you first begin to hold fifth-dimensional energy, reality itself seems to rearrange. People may drift from your life without explanation, opportunities may dissolve, identities may crumble. It's not punishment, it's purification. The universe is clearing space for alignment. You're no longer permitted to build upon false ground. The relationships that remain are those that echo your higher resonance. You will notice that conversations deepen, synchronicities multiply, and your very presence begins to influence the emotional field of others. You become a tuning fork. Wherever you go, frequencies rise. Yet, with this new sensitivity comes responsibility. Your thoughts become potent currents of creation. Words spoken from fear or judgment manifest rapidly. This is why fifth-dimensional living demands vigilance, not through rigid control, but through mindfulness. When you catch yourself spiraling into lower vibration, pause, breathe, observe without condemnation. This simple awareness is enough to dissolve the illusion of separation and return you to coherence. In the fifth dimension, transformation happens not through effort, but through remembrance. In practical life, this means that every moment becomes a meditation. Washing dishes, driving through traffic, tending to a garden, all are acts of divine participation when done in presence. You begin to experience life not as a sequence of tasks, but as an unbroken stream of consciousness. The ordinary becomes sacred because you have become sacred through your awareness. The veil between spiritual and physical dissolves, revealing the truth that the material world is not separate from the divine. It is its expression. Money, work, and ambition transform in meaning. You no longer chase them out of fear or lack. Instead, They flow naturally as reflections of energy alignment. You begin to understand abundance not as accumulation but as resonance. The more aligned you are with gratitude and purpose, the more resources circulate through you. You are not a hoarder of energy but a conduit of it. In this dimension, generosity becomes magnetic. The more you give from authenticity, the more the universe pours through you. The body, too, begins to change. It becomes more sensitive, less tolerant of low vibrations. Foods, environments, and even conversations that once felt neutral may now feel heavy. The body communicates instantly through sensations, tightness, fatigue, or ease. Listen. The fifth-dimensional body is not a vessel to dominate but a compass for consciousness. Rest when you feel called. Move when inspired. Eat what vibrates with life. The more you honor the body's wisdom, the more light it can hold. Relationships also evolve. The fifth dimension dismantles the old structures of dependency and control. Love ceases to be ownership and becomes recognition, the recognition of the divine within another. You will find that manipulation, jealousy, and competition simply cannot survive this frequency. Instead, relationships become laboratories of evolution, spaces where souls reflect and refine each other's truth. Even conflict, when approached with awareness, transforms into an alchemical fire that reveals the gold of understanding beneath the ash of ego. And yet, integration can feel lonely. The higher you rise in consciousness, the fewer people seem to understand your language. This loneliness, however, is not a void. It is an incubation chamber. It teaches you to find companionship within your own soul. Over time, you begin to notice that the loneliness softens into serenity, and the serenity expands into connection, not with individuals alone, but with the pulse of all existence. You sense the trees breathing with you, the sky responding to your emotion, the earth humming beneath your feet. You are never alone. The universe is constantly in dialogue with your awareness. As your perception deepens, time itself begins to cooperate with your state of being. You notice that when you are aligned, calm, open, and grateful, time expands. Synchronicities increase. You might think of someone moments before they call or manifest an opportunity at the perfect instant. This is the natural order of fifth-dimensional flow. Time becomes not a ruler, but a river, responding to the currents of your energy. When you fall out of alignment, life feels jagged again, but even this serves a purpose. It reminds you to return to stillness. Living as a fifth-dimensional being doesn't mean abandoning the world. It means upgrading your participation in it. You begin to act not out of reaction, but creation. You see fear in others, not as something to fight, but as a frequency to transmute. You become a stabilizing force amidst global chaos, an anchor for divine intelligence. While others are caught in conflict and despair, you radiate coherence. Your energy becomes a form of silent leadership, one capable of transforming spaces, communities, even systems, without ever uttering a word. But this integration also calls for humility. To hold fifth-dimensional consciousness is to understand that awakening does not make one superior, it makes one responsible. The chosen ones are not chosen to rise above others. They are chosen to serve through presence. Every act of kindness, every moment of forgiveness, every silent blessing ripples across the quantum field. You begin to realize that your smallest gesture may alter timelines you cannot even see. This is how the fifth dimension merges heaven and earth, not through dramatic displays of power, but through subtle acts of awareness multiplied by billions of awakening souls. Each chosen one becomes a cell in the body of collective ascension. Together, these lights form a network of remembrance, restoring the earth to her intended vibration of harmony. Integration, then, is not about perfection. It is about devotion to the process, to the stillness, to the truth. It's about embodying the awareness that every breath, every thought, every heartbeat is part of a divine symphony. And though the human mind may falter, the soul remains unwavering in its knowing. You are the bridge between dimensions, the meeting point where form and formlessness touch. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the words fall away, when the teachings that once guided you become whispers of something far vaster than language. That moment, luminous and silent, is the doorway to the fifth dimension. For what you have been seeking is not a higher place in the sky, but a higher state of being, a vibration that dissolves the illusion of distance between yourself and the divine. You are not reaching toward the light anymore. You are the light remembering itself. The signs that you are transitioning into this higher dimension are not always dramatic. They unfold quietly, like dawn spreading across the horizon after a long night. You begin to live with gentleness rather than urgency. You forgive not because it's moral, but because you feel the futility of holding density. You speak with more silence than words, because you sense that truth needs space to echo. You stop seeking validation, for the source within you becomes the only mirror you trust. These are not acts of escape, they are acts of return, the homecoming of the soul to its natural frequency. In the fifth dimension, existence becomes art. Every breath paints upon the canvas of reality, every thought sculpts the shape of the moment. You realize that the universe has always been co-creating with you, patiently responding to the symphony of your vibration. You understand that heaven was never elsewhere. It was waiting to be unveiled through you. Each time you choose compassion over judgment, trust over fear, presence over distraction, you open another gateway within yourself, and through those gateways, new worlds emerge. This awakening is not limited to mystics or sages. It is happening collectively across humanity. The storms of conflict, the breakdown of old systems, the surges of emotion sweeping through the collective psyche, these are not signs of collapse, but of rebirth. The earth herself is recalibrating, shedding layers of separation to return to coherence. You, as a chosen one, are part of this planetary metamorphosis. Your individual transformation contributes to the collective ascension. The love you cultivate within becomes a frequency that radiates outward, altering the invisible architecture of the world. But remember, this is not a call to perfection. The fifth dimension does not require that you float above human experience, untouched by its messiness. It asks only that you remain awake within it. To feel deeply without drowning, to act with clarity even when the outcome is uncertain, to stand in chaos yet radiate peace, this is mastery. The chosen ones are not those who have escaped the storm, but those who have learned to become the calm at its center. The transformation of the world begins in this stillness. When you sit in silence and breathe consciously, you realign your vibration with the source. The mind, once a restless tide of thought, becomes a mirror so clear that divine intelligence reflects through it effortlessly. Inspiration flows without struggle. Synchronicity becomes the new logic. Life, once an uphill climb, begins to unfold with the grace of a river following its natural course. You no longer push reality, you dance with it. To live in the fifth dimension is to live as remembrance. You remember that every soul is on its path, even those lost in fear. You remember that time is not running out, because eternity is not measured in clocks. You remember that love has no opposite, only varying degrees of recognition. And most of all, you remember that you came here intentionally, to be awake in the dream, to hold the vibration of light steady while the world remembers its own reflection. The ancient mystics called this state Christ consciousness, Buddha mind, or oneness awareness. These were never religions, they were frequencies. Each described the same phenomenon, the awakening of human consciousness into divine coherence. You are living in the age when that frequency is no longer the exception but the next step of evolution. The fifth dimension is not coming, it is here, humming beneath the static of the old world, waiting for eyes unclouded by fear to see it. And so, the call is simple but profound. Embody what you know. It is not enough to understand unity, you must be it. Speak truth gently. Move through the world as though it is alive, because it is. When you touch water, feel its memory. When you meet a stranger, look for the spark of your own soul behind their eyes. When you breathe, imagine the universe exhaling through you. Live as if everything is sacred, because nothing less is true. This is the transformational call of the fifth-dimensional human, to live as love embodied. Not abstract love, but the kind that listens, forgives, and creates beauty, even when the world trembles. To be a sanctuary of peace in a time of noise. To act not from reaction, but revelation. To carry stillness into every moment, so that even your presence becomes a quiet revolution. And as you do, reality bends. You'll notice that life begins to meet you differently. The people you encounter, the places you visit, the circumstances you attract, they will all echo your new frequency. You will no longer search for miracles, for your life itself will become one. You'll see that the fifth dimension was never about escaping the human condition. It was about redeeming it, infusing it with remembrance. So breathe deeply now. Feel the truth of this moment ripple through you. The light you've been seeking is not above. It is arising from within, expanding through every cell, anchoring heaven into earth. You are the bridge, the flame, the frequency. And as you walk forward from this moment, know that every step you take, every breath you draw, carries the resonance of a new world being born through you. The time of awakening is no longer coming, it has arrived. And you, yes, you, are one of its harbingers.